Et j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir Thomas Kilpper. Danke Thomas, dass du da bist. Wir freuen uns.
Donc notre prochain invité est Thomas Kilpper, que nous sommes ravis d'accueillir aujourd'hui. Cette présentation sera faite en anglais puisque Thomas est anglophone. So we are very happy for having you here today, Thomas, and we want to thank you warmly for honoring our invitation. Nobody's listening to me when I'm talking. Thank you. Okay, anyway, I keep on going because otherwise we will be too late. So Thomas is mainly working with public spaces and historic buildings using like a wide range of media, like sculptures, installations, and video and photography. His work's aims is always to bring awareness on social conflicts and issues. He tries to give a voice to the ones who are never heard, and he's here today to talk to us about his project, a lighthouse for Lampedusa, and many other ones.
Hello, thanks for nothing to having me here. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm very sorry not to be able to talk to you in French, but my English is very basic, and I hope you can get it. I put you through to some of my projects related basically to migration. Since 2008 I'm involved or focus partly in my artistic work on the issue of migration. It started when I got an invitation to a solo exhibition in Italy. At that time the Italian government with Berlusconi was steering a really hard course within the society in Italy and polarizing, and I thought the migration issue in Italy is especially important because most of the refugees, as you know, arrive in Lampedusa, the island you just have seen. It's a very small spot in the very south of Italy, and about 5,000 people are living in Lampedusa. And approximately in the last 20 years, every year, about 20,000 people from basically or mainly Africa, but as well from Asian conflicts, has arrived at the shores in Italy, Lampedusa. The idea to set up a lighthouse comes because of the boats of the migrants are very poor. Here you can see in Lampedusa the symmetry of the boats. The boats don't have navigation and are not supposed to cross a sea. And at the same time, to try to save lives for the migrants, I developed the idea within this lighthouse should be a museum of migration and let's say a showroom for contemporary art on the island for the people who are living there, so that in this very project two sides from one problem would gain. Because the people in Lampedusa, of course, are very much affected from this catastrophe and from this ongoing problem. In the last years, of course, it changed. 25 years ago, nobody from the government was in charge, and the families in Lampedusa, they developed a stand either helping or not helping if a boat arrived on a very individual base. So everybody living there has got a very clear sense of this actual problem. So my idea was to build the lighthouse with remains from the boats, but when I was there now 3 and 4 times, on and off, it seems to be impossible that this is gonna be realized in Lampedusa, because the situation on the ground is very polarized. So we had a mayor in Lampedusa who was very much supporting migration issues related, and she was as well liking the idea to set up this art project. But at the moment we have again an extreme right-wing mayor in Lampedusa, so I'm not very optimistic to be able to realize this project in the near future. Here you see the actual refugee center on Lampedusa. It was, when I was visiting it, completely overcrowded. They were sleeping out in the free, and even it was in November and was very cold in the night, so they built their shelters. And as a result of that, at one day, refugees burned the refugee center, and my idea took shape then at a very first sketch in 2008 at this gallery in Italy that originally invited me for the solo exhibition. And as you see, it's just a model. It's about 7 meters high, and the light is blinking, and it's just a really basic sketch. And I was able to travel with this model and the idea to set up a lighthouse in Lampedusa within about 25 exhibitions throughout Europe. I showed it in Brussels, in Berlin, in Paris, here in the Garden of Tuileries, and of course in several places in Italy itself, in Switzerland, and here in Dresden. And you might know in Dresden we have a very strong right-wing movement called Paquita, and so it was very controversial as well to show it in these places, in some of these places, in Dresden especially. And so I got the sense that this model is now already a work on its own. Even it should envisage this perspective to realize it one day in Lampedusa. But I think as our societies have changed in the course of the last 5 years dramatically towards nationalism, or even we have militant neo-Nazis fighting against refugees and migration in terms of violence, violent attacks, and so on. So that this project is as well a project for our minds in Europe, and for us. So not only for Lampedusa itself. And as it is ongoing, I was as well able to show it alongside Documenta last year in Kassel. And in another scale, I transferred a church tower into a lighthouse, and it was blinking all day and night, with a text alongside Lampedusa, Melia, and Lesbos is here. Open legal escape routes to Europe. And inside of the church I showed objects, and this is a new step forward in a direction to set up a collection of objects migrants have left behind on their boats. I work on this in a collaboration with an Italian artist, Massimo Ricciardo, and we were able to show as well this very intimate and very intensely loaded objects. They retrieve from everyday objects, like you see here the pills or the mobile phones, but as well very personal items that they just lose because maybe they are nervous when they arrive, or maybe police is chasing them down from the boats. And we think that within these objects are the will to survive inscribed, and for this reason we think it's worthwhile to keep them and to show them, because as you can imagine, when they decide to go on a boat, they can only take very few items with them. So everybody has to do a decision, what is important to me and my travel and what not. So we have, for example, a little pocket of sand from the homeland and so on. So very intimate things, but as well, as you see here, cheese packets and pills and so on, but as well ID cards and yeah, all varieties of objects. So this collection is ongoing as well and growing. And alongside these projects, I tried to establish within my art practice as well collaborations with newcomers, people who have just arrived. I was invited in a gallery space which is about 2,000 square meters, so to say very big, in the south of Germany, and a part of the whole building was now transferred from a place where people used to cure them, like a cure place, into a hostel, and about 200 migrants are now living there. And for a course of 2 months, the refugees have been worked with me and artists on the ground there, and they were painting and drawing, and I installed my own artwork with them and mingled it, so that it was not only separated or anything. So I tried to integrate as much as possible and set it up in a way of an installation. And parallel to that, I'm researching how the violence at the south borders of Europe is changing. So here we see on the Balkan the Macedonian-Serbian borders, and I was in Belgrade to see here, for example, a very subtle kind of institutionalized violence from the authorities. They set up these yellow, orange fences that migrants who used to meet and gather in this park, Afghani Park called, in the center of Belgrade, that they were not able to sit down on the lawn and gather there. And most visible is, of course, the barbed wire fences that grow and grow, Europe as a democratic, open state, and is sort of a vision of our parents maybe, but at the moment, especially in the south of Europe, it's going to be more and more enclosed, and I call this an institutionalized violence, kind of. And here you see in Lesbos the migration center, as well prison-like British military boat. So the conflict of migration or the problem of migration, the social problem, is conceived from the politics more or less as a problem of safety, security, and not of on a humanitarian level. So it's a humanitarian problem from my side, of course, and not a safety problem. And as long as the politics conceives this as a safety problem, I think we are not going to see any solution of which leads us in a more human future. So this is the newly built fenced-off border in Hungary, Macedonian, and as you know, in the enclave of Melilla, the Spanish police is very violently acting. So the conflict of colonialism is here very, very clearly to be seen. In a way, 500 years ago, Africans were forced and violently brought to Europe as slaves and the United States, and nowadays they are violently prevented to come to Europe. So it's very clearly in this context of colonialism to see, and with this, within Germany, for example, it's very clean. Here, this is then the prison for the people who get aborted and pushed out from Germany back to their homelands, and so very sterile, violent issue. And as a contrast to these photos that I tried to retrieve and take as a research project, I deal as well with the notion of the so-called informal violence from people of extreme right-wing. We had, unfortunately, about 300 firebombed refugee homes in the last course of 3 years. And I'm doing a series of press photos, but drawn with charcoal, because charcoal comes as well from fire. So this is, unfortunately, I'm very sorry that I don't know how you see. Yeah, here it's better. I thought it's cropped, but it's more the monitor. It's dealing. Or I try to deal, not to forget about these atrocities on the one side, but it's ambivalent for an artist to deal with these atrocities, because my main duty should be to highlight the beauty on the one side, but as long as things like this happen, I have as well to deal with the nasty. So it's very ambivalent, and it sometimes questions me as well about my own work. Is this fair to do? And but yeah, I try further, and at the moment I am preparing an exhibition which opens next week in Berlin, and it's actually a collaboration as well with people who are living in the district of Neukölln in Berlin. There will be workshops, and we will address the issue, because Neukölln has a big community of migrating people who came to Berlin, and there will be workshops doing woodcuts. And the exhibition is called Uprooted, because the uprooting is for me sort of a symbol of the migrating situation, that the social roots are cut off. And I don't know why it's not showing this image, what you have seen at the very beginning. Finally, it's not coming, but yeah, this is the image. It's I developed the project. It's within a beautiful park that was established some 100 years ago, and in the park last year this tree fell off in a very tormented storm in summer. So yeah, it's so to say that the nature and me, we work collaboratively on this issue of uprooting, or how to deal with. Is there maybe as well a chance, if people have, so to say, changed radically their roots situation, coming from, let's say, this sub-Sahara situation, or from Syria to Europe, and have to establish new social connections and social roots. So, and of course, it's for me as an artist dealing with these issues. I try, how can we welcome them and how can we work together? It's not so much helping for me. It's because helping is not a justice or an equal relationship. It's more how we can actually live together, share and interact with each other, or as wonderful Thomas Hirschhorn's project showed, how can I learn from them and how can they learn from me? And I hope that we can do in this exhibition a project. So the woodcuts, for example, that I have made in the course of the last weeks, I can't show you because they are still in the process of getting printed. But they show atrocities and murder situations and so on, what we had from the extreme right in Germany in the course of the last 15 years. And as well antagonists and protagonists from resisting against racism, and highlighting the people who actually in this particular Kiez, Neukölln, has been violated. Maybe you have some questions. And I would be happy to do this. Thank you very much. And